evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of May 26, 2026. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty,
justice
for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Good evening. Ms. Ayers, Mr. Buccalo,
Present.
Mr. Goldstein,
Here.
Mr. Hostin,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Here.
Mr. Sawyer,
Present.
Mr. Seed,
Present.
Mr. Wiggins,
Here.
Ms. Young,
Here.
Ms. Edie,
Here.
Ms. Wennerstrand,
Here.
Mr. Degenshine,
Present.
Mr. Dellinger, Mr. Freyer,
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 12th, 2026. Is there a motion? Mr. Degenshine, are there any corrections, changes?
It's hard to hear.
Want to check that, Simon?
Could you repeat that for me? I couldn't hear it.
Hello?
Somebody
We can hear in the chambers, they can't hear us. While we're doing, I think we can take the corrections. Izzy, do you have a correction?
Yes, there's a few of the names. Page 7, I think page 7 and 8, Matthew Silver is the correct, it's Silver, not Silver.
One second.
People.
Yeah, we're just taking the corrections to the minutes.
Okay.
Well,
Reed Arbach's name is spelled incorrectly and Diane Cece's name was spelled incorrectly. There might have been some others, but I'm not sure.
Could you speak really quick?
I'm saying hello to you, Simon.
There we go. Can you hear that all right? No?
Okay. Yeah, because then we'll get feedback loop. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, yeah.
Are there any other corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, abstentions. All right, the minutes passed unanimously. Moving on to public participation. We have some people signed up. I can hear us. I'm hearing like an echo kind of, but you can't hear.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Pretty sure. Hallelujah.
John 3:16.
Mario, can you hear me? Slightly?
All right, okay, all right, so we were moving on to public participation. We have some people who have signed up, so we'll turn to Chief Clerk.
Chris Fedor,
Good evening. Hi. I just want to speak real quick about the project going on at Gregory and Fifth. I am a resident there. I personally live on Fifth Street, 5 houses from the intersection. Oh, talk close. Going through the plans real quick, all I could find in this is that it was in Plan A and Plan B. It shows that you are taking away the on-street parking from one side of Fifth Street and adding a bike lane. I don't believe that's a correct course of action, and taking away parking in front of my house or across the street would only add to the congestion. When we complain about beachgoers coming to our street and parking and walking to the beach, that doesn't solve the problem by removing parking. Not that we're trying to accommodate, but there are other tactics or methods that you could implement, such as resident parking permits and other things. Also, when it comes to the speeding on the street, which is a big complaint on Fifth Street, there are other things other than narrowing the roadway, making it more unsafe for either the driver that's driving or the potential person that's parked on the side of the road. I run an auto body shop. I see the result of these accidents every day. Making a more narrow street may not be the correct course of action. Maybe adding a stop sign at Hawkins. Rumble strips on the street, considering we can't do speed bumps. Making it a one-way. There's plenty of other options other than adding a bike lane to Fifth Street. And I am wholeheartedly against that. I also don't see an immediate problem with the roundabout as is. And I firmly disagree that it needs a complete overhaul. Crosswalks, bike lane, bike safety. I am for that. I do want residents to enjoy the neighborhood. I do want people to be there. I'm not against that. But I do feel that there are better ways of going about it, and I would say the council to reevaluate the proposed plans A and B before pushing it forward to getting, from what I understand, shovel-ready plans in June. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peter.
Just want to give an update to everybody on the volume issue. So I just went inside myself and listened to the volume on Zoom. It's very loud. But here in the room, it is amplified, but it's not amplified as much as it normally is. However, it is being amplified as much as is being allowed on the system right now. One of the concerns that we have about we shut everything down and reboot it. We'll also shut down the Zoom, and members of the public are participating in Zoom. So what I'd ask is just that everybody could be a little bit louder than normal when they speak. And I'm just going to hang out here for a little while longer, just to make sure that it's a decent volume. So I think that's the best way to do it, because otherwise, if we shut everything down, we're concerned about getting the meeting back up on Zoom for the public. So just ask everybody to be a little patient, try to speak a little louder, and we'll make our best effort in person, but certainly loud enough over Zoom. So thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
One more thing,
There
sorry.
is a small chance that if I shut it down, the iPad will be on, but the wide angle shot will go away for a moment. So it might not be aesthetically the most pleasing thing, but I could try to reboot it, but I'm hearing, that's why I was taken back.
We're gonna go on my plan. We're gonna keep going this way, and just ask everybody to speak a little louder. Just pretend you're at home yelling at someone.
Okay. Okay.
Betty Bono,
I can use my middle school teacher voice. I taught at both Ponus Ridge and Nathan Hale, so I'm used to speaking in a loud voice. My name is Betty Bono. My address is 35 Fifth Street. I sent in longer testimony, but this is the short version. But on the longer testimony that I sent, please look at the footnotes, because I think there's important information in the footnotes. I believe the contract with VHB as written should be tabled or defeated because it forecloses any plans for Fifth Street other than the two listed ones, both of which call for installation of a 10-foot wide shared path and elimination of half of the on-street parking. I want to make 5 points in regard to this. First, shared paths are not appropriate or safe for all settings. Again, look at the footnotes. A particular concern is when there are driveways or intersections that cross that shared path. On the south side of Fifth Street, where they want to put the shared path, there are 9 driveways and the intersection with Hawkins. So that means in the one block of Fifth Street, there will be 10 occasions when cars will need to cross that shared path. Secondly, limited parking and longer walks to get to your car create unsafe hardship situations that fall most heavily on the most vulnerable. And that includes parents with young children, the disabled, the elderly, and people, especially women, who need to come home at night. If they can't park near their homes, they got to walk a while on dark streets. I don't like that. Third, by my measurements, And I was out there, making myself ridiculous with a tape measure this morning. By my measurements, there is not room to retain a separate sidewalk on the north side of the street. And so the shared path would become the sidewalk on the south side of the street where they put the path. That means that those nice, brand new ADA compliant sidewalks that were put in just a few years ago on the south side of the street would need to be ripped up, and the sidewalk portion for that side of the street would be this shared path with two-way bike traffic on it. Fourth, I do not believe residents-only parking will provide adequate solution for Fifth Street. There's just too many housing units where you would need the parking. And last, if the only vision for a shared path for the Newark River Valley Trail is a 10-foot wide path, even along a residential street, then the same thing is going to happen when the path is continued. From Fifth Street, the path goes up the 4 blocks of Cove, turns left, there's a block of Fifth Street, you end up in front of Frosty's, and then you go around Seaview. So if 10 feet of pavement is going to be added on all those streets, that's going to be a huge reduction of parking in the area, not just on Fifth Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bona.
Tricia.
After hearing Betty, I assume we're good with the volume now, so speak like that, we all said it.
Good.
Good evening. My name is Tricia Saccone. I live at 13 Berkeley. I think before we even talk about a study, have we looked at the monument? Does everyone in this room even understand what that monument symbolizes? Does anyone know what that plaque even says? And I can read a bit of what that plaque says. The stone, erected December 1895, commemorated the purchase from the Aboriginal inhabitants made February 26th of 1640 by Roger Ludlow. He was the deputy governor of the colony of Connecticut. He was the framer of his first code of laws and founder of Norwalk. And it goes on to say a few other things. Has TMP looked at that? Because in our last meeting here 2 weeks ago, they actually discussed there's a potential that it could be moved if there's a choice in what the plan looks like. So that's one of the first things we need to look at. We also need to look at safety in the area, which I think this is why we're all here. And I think everyone can agree in this room, we want everyone to be safe. But at the same time, what does that mean? Does it mean we need a $246,000 study? Or does it mean that we need to paint lines, put pedestrian beacons? Could it mean that we are just doing better, painting on the roads, well lit? In the summer months, are we providing additional support from our police for traffic control in all of that area? So those are a couple of things that I really believe are important before we consider this. I also want to take a moment to thank the meeting we had the other night. Councilman Goldstein, Councilman Seed, Councilman Wennerstrand, and Councilman Edie. We appreciate it. I know the community appreciated you all coming down to listen, but we just don't want to make sure that you're going through the hoops to do this. We want to make sure you're actually listening. I also want to talk about fiscal responsibility. And although we're talking about a $3.5 million project, if approved, if there's a study, what does that mean? Why are we spending this money? It is taxpayer dollars, although coming from the state or the federal government, it's still taxpayer dollars. So these are definite things we need to be looking at. Again, visibility, lighting. We need action more than studies. These are things that we can be doing right now. We do not need to spend this ridiculous amount of money, and we need to listen to the neighbors that are in that area. I will ask TMP, how many accidents would you project realistically this would prevent? What 30
lower
seconds.
cost alternatives were evaluated? Is it just looking at this? What are the long-term maintenance costs of a roundabout and potential 2 roundabouts if you look at the 2021 study? How will project success be measured? And these are really important things. So I'm going to close this with, we can improve safety without spending $3.5 million on a new roundabout.
Let's invest in pedestrian beacons, better lighting, clearly marked crosswalks, accessible sidewalks, and stronger traffic enforcement. These improvements can make a real difference for residents while preserving the history and character of East Norwalk and respect taxpayers' hard-earned dollars and respect the residents of East Norwalk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Here again, Reed Auerbach. Retired captain of the fire department, 44 years. Treasurer of the third taxing district in East Norwalk as well. Some of you who weren't here before, I'm in the same house I grew up in for 71 years. I get the safety aspect. As Trish said, though, there are a lot cheaper ways to do this. Maybe some flashing lights through other areas in town. As you come to the roundabout, the light would flash. More crosswalks in front of my street on Roland Avenue. There is no crosswalk to go to the park. Parking to me is huge. If you go to my house now and park and try and get a parking spot in Marvin Beach in front of my house, there's a ball game going on, Little League girls, Little League ball field. When that was done, the agreement with the city was to park at Marvin School. Nobody does that. They're on the streets, on the side streets. Now with this new plan, if you take part of the parking on Fifth Street and on Gregory Boulevard, I've said before, where are people going to park? Where I live in Marvin Beach, there's houses that have shared driveways or no driveways. You can't change that. So the people on Fifth Street, Gregory Boulevard are going to just go wherever they can park. Another issue is, and this has nothing to do with a roundabout, that at the beach, when they took the guard shack and put it inside the beach, out-of-towners will come in, drive around, drop people off, and park all over Fifth Street, Roland Avenue, all of Marvin Beach. Again, I didn't realize what Trish was saying. When I was a kid, I used to go do rubbings. I went to Old Marvin School, do rubbings on the monument. Again, there's cheaper ways to do this and not disrupt. I want to thank the council members that were at the meeting at my old school, the Marvin. As you can see, there was a lot of negative comments about doing this. The elected officials are elected to represent the people of Norwalk. Please listen to what people are saying. I'm not against bike lanes, but to give up one lane of traffic and have a 10-foot bike lane, as a retired fire captain, you have one lane, say if it goes to the beach and you've got one lane each way, and God forbid you have some kind of a medical issue or a disaster, it's going to be a nightmare. It works the way it is, but again, there is different ways to do some other safety measures. I do think this is a done deal. Please prove me wrong. Thank you.
Charles, Dominic.
Good evening, council members. This is my third appearance in front of a group. Some of my comments will be a reiteration of what I've said before. I emailed the council this afternoon most of these comments. I've had about 1 week to prepare for tonight. After putting some ideas together, at night, laying in bed awake, my mind drifted. It drifted to two very uncomfortable positions. One, I thought that I was caught in a raging river, the Johnstown flood of the 1800s, in which the massive, overpowering force wiped away the town. 2,200 people killed.
That's my hometown, I just have to say.
I feel that I'm living that today, in that a massive force in front of me is about to sweep me away. Position number two, I realized 250 years ago today, the reigning power did not listen to the people. What happened? We had a revolution. Things changed. I hope that does not happen here. I hope you listen to the voices. I want to echo some of the comments that were said before, that I feel that the process is perhaps not well presented. I feel that the steps have been ready, fire, aim. I think that we've missed some things. I think we've missed a lot of the input of the community. These are all my preambles. Now for my comments, real comments. I strongly urge you to vote against further progress on the Gregory Boulevard and Fifth Street roundabout development. My understanding is that you can either vote it down, approve it, or amend it. I strongly recommend that you vote it down. 2 reasons. First of all, I believe that we do not have the correct approach. We're using a sledgehammer to fix a little issue, which I do not even recognize as being an issue. I've been a resident for 30 years. I'm not aware of any accidents. I'm sure that you have some data, but when I poured through the data was not compelling. I did not see the reason for this development of the roundabout. Safety can always be improved. I have no doubt about that, but it is not compelling data. I think we need a
30
little
seconds.
jackhammer. Second, I think the undesirable consequences of the Fifth Street parking spaces are the following. Seniors who park in front of homes can no longer access. Mothers be forced to transport young children across the street. Snow removal will be negatively affected. There'll be less place to pile the snow. The conflicts as neighbors will be forced to compete for a limited parking space will resolve in conflicts. Trash removal will need to accommodate closely parked vehicles. Every inch will be
3 minutes.
occupied. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Jim Anderson.
Jim Anderson, 2 Oldwell Court. First, I'd like to thank the Common Council and Your Honor, Sis Mayor Smith. Put in a new word there, Bob. I don't want to reiterate what was said and a lot of things that was said, especially Fifth Street. I see and I live right off of Gregory Boulevard, about 200 feet away. Lack of enforcement on this section of Gregory Boulevard. There is enforcement on Beach Road, but there is none at all on Gregory Boulevard. As far as speeders blowing through the one light on First Street, none at all. And I hear it, I see it. I think enforcement would help slow down. I had suggested possibly even putting a stop sign or a traffic light by their roundabout that we're talking about. Maybe that will be less cost. Don't know. But that's all about us. So again, thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Brian Clark. Brian Clark. Yesenia Perez. Donna Menton.
Thank you, council members. And I do want to reiterate a lot of what everyone has already said so far. My name is Donna Menton. I'm at 8 Gregory Boulevard, not far from where Jim Anderson is. I've been a resident of East Norwalk for over 20 years, and I regularly travel East Avenue, Gregory Boulevard, all of the surrounding streets, including the Mill Pond area, including the beach area. I live just a few houses down from the new Mill Pond construction at Gregory and Cemetery. And, you know, just to be really direct about it, the current traffic pattern there is a daily challenge. It's created confusion, congestion. Residents are traveling both north and south. For all of us, it represents a really broad pattern that seems to be increasingly frustrating for the community. And it's a significant burden on those of us, not only for drivers, but for people who are trying to walk in the area, but those of us who rely on the roads. It's not good by any stretch. So, you know, the concern tonight for me is not so much that the improvements are being made. And, you know, we need improvements throughout the city. But it's how
those decisions are being made and implemented. We understand change, change happens, cities grow, neighborhoods grow, and it's necessary, but too often the input is sought from the neighborhood and from the residents only after plans are finalized. And funding's already committed. I mean, this process completely undermines the trust of the residents and makes the public input almost irrelevant. And it makes it feel symbolic rather than there's any kind of meaning to it. It's like, why are you asking us after the fact? There's multiple concerns I see at play here. It's the lack of meaningful resident input, which is what I just said, before decisions are made, which is important. The rising costs associated with planning and construction, and with this particular project, up to 3 million plus after the plans are determined what we're going to do, and then the actual build out. Then there's going to be significant disruption, which is anticipated, especially during beach season, because that's when the construction has to be done during the warm weather. And that's when and currently our neighborhoods already, it's just strained with traffic and ongoing construction. So, I sit on my porch. I live 4 houses down from the Mill Pond spot. I sit on my porch and watch the traffic backed up to First Street.
30 seconds.
Okay. I think fundamentally the residents are asking, when will the city start seeking our input before committing to projects? And when are they going to take our best interest in mind? And when are they going to listen to what we have to say? There's lots that can be done. We can use alternative options, and none of that is being explored. Don't take away parking unless, I reiterate what everybody else has to say. It's unfortunate. I do think this is a foregone conclusion that you're already going to do it, but try better next time.
That is all we have for in the chambers. Is there anyone online? Oh, yes, you may. Yes, if you just come and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. My name is Louis Garcia, 15 Bond Street, Norwalk, obviously. And I'm going to try to get to a couple of things. I actually went to the gym early today so I can get here and do this in person, because I have been in Zoom a couple of times already. And I'm sorry for the people that can't do this in Zoom, because I don't think it's very fair for them. But it seems to me like every time I get in front of these committees and council and other different committees, is that we keep hearing people saying something against this project, and people keeps falling deaf ears. So I'm an architect, and I think I know a little about construction, been at it for 35 years. And I still think to this day that this project is really a waste of money. And if it's coming from the state and we just have to use it, let's use it some other way. Let's use it with the, with schools. We need money in the schools all the time. With daycare, with the elderly people. We put the money into something that's a roundabout that is a stupid circle. And we would spend $3.5 million to build a circle. Is anybody in the committee really listening to what we're saying? I actually get into numbers because that's my career. I work in numbers. So, I think $246,000 for a fee. It translates to, even if I got paid at $300 an hour, which I don't make, by the way, it figures out like 820 hours. Okay, so there's some need for a survey, there's a need for some civil engineering, but 820 hours, I can design a beautiful building for that many hours. Really, let me tell you, I could. And then we have $3.5 million for a project that we don't know what it's going to look like to begin with. So who came up with these numbers? I mean, the way that we work is that we do a design, we look at it, we value engineer it, we try to look for the best price possible, and then it goes out to bid, And the other thing is, this company got the project somehow from back in 2001 and it's been grandfathered in. What happened to public bidding? Isn't this a public project? I mean, if somebody's already, I don't want to say, but why is this company so much into everybody's, pockets? When we have public bidding, I've done public work. And every time I've done public work, there's always public bidding. And what we do is we come in and they open the bids in front of everybody, so everybody knows what's going on, and they pick the low bidder. Was anything like that done here? I just don't understand. And I'm surprised that every time I hear the members talk about it, they're all in front of it and for it. None of you guys are against this project? Come on, people. Thank you.
And Simon, is there anyone who would like to speak, who signed up online?
Yes, there is one person at this time, Diane L.
Good evening, Mayor Smith and Council President Goldstein and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tonight, there are many important things on this agenda. I thank you for your time. However, the following things I'm going to speak quickly because there are a few. The first is under Finance and Claims, Item 6, special appropriation for $200,000 may be related to the minis or NIPS. I think, again, we need to send this back to the committee or send it to the committee. It should have been in the first place where the public could have had some input, and that is DPW committee. So please send this back to that committee instead of kind of sneaking it through Finance and Claims as a special appropriation. Under Zoom renewal, I ask that you add as a caveat that you turn on the video for Zoom renewal. There is no reason why that permission is not granted like other cities and the state of Connecticut. Under item C, Recreation and Parks, I'm so pleased and I thank you for applying for the Andrews Field money, Long Island Sound. However, let's make sure that there are appropriate rails put in early because we don't want to see another Woods Pond and Lakewood Drive where Urban Trails Grant has been misused, and we will be in touch with you soon, Mayor, about that. Lastly, I save for the roundabout. I now live on Gregory Boulevard. I agree with many of the speakers, especially Betty Bono. I believe that you need to table it or defeat it. I wish you would have sent it back to committee a while ago. The ECD needs to go back to the drawing board because there needs to be other alternatives where there are some estimates of the cost of those alternatives. That was not done. And I believe, what is the rush? In truth, only some of the money is tied up with deadlines, and that is 2029, not this year. And much of the rest of it is staff time, which is the operating budget, and the other is the capital budget. That's the majority of the money needed for this. And then of course, Jim Himes, if he only knew what was being planned with the money that he fought for. There are a need to look at alternatives before you even use $250,000. Please table it. You need itemized justifications for this scope of work of $246,000. I agree with the engineer that just spoke. I'm a consultant and I've had to put together very tight budgets. I ask that you to also take a look of moving the Norwalk River Valley Trail to another street, not Fifth Street, because of the fact of the pattern. I do believe there should be more public bidding. VHB is a great company, but I'm not so sure that they should be the only ones allowed to work on this. I thank you for your time, but the thing is, please show us that you are listening. Do not be pressured, ECD and Chairman Goldstein of the ECD. It should be going back to the drawing board. Thank you very much.
We have one more person online at this moment in time. Rich B, you're up next.
Good evening, Rich Bonifant. You can hear me, 17 Park Hill Avenue. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you, Rich.
Okay, on the roundabout, if you approve these design plans tonight, there's no turning back. Okay, once design plans are in motion and paid for, you would have to return the grant money. If you saw the plans in their final stage and you said, no, we don't like it, we're not going to do it. Well, you already spent that money, and I think grant money on design is contingent upon building the project. So you're going to end up spending $250 million or more or $250,000 or more. And then if you said, no, we don't like it, then you got to return that money. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, please vote no on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonifant. And we have a few more people here in council chambers who've signed up.
Nanette Halpin.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to read a letter tonight from a local business person who's working and could not be here. Can you hear me?
Well, it's a little soft,
I
but
thought I
yeah.
was. Okay, hi, everyone. I'm here tonight to read a letter that was written by a local business person because he owns and is operating his restaurant right now and could not be here himself. Excuse me. Hi, my name is Steve Kites, and I am the owner of Nick's Place on 86 Gregory Boulevard since 2001. I recently reopened my business this year after a 2-year absence. In 2023, I was looking to sell and relocate after 22 years in business because the town I had spent my entire life in was quickly becoming unrecognizable in the name of progress and redevelopment. Many familiar structures, such as businesses and residences, had been purchased and demolished to make way for bigger, more expensive housing to attract a larger, more gentrified demographic of people. So I ask, progress at what cost? Or should I say, progress no matter what the cost to our residents and business owners? And when I say cost, I don't necessarily mean something that's exclusively financial. Our town has quickly become a foreign place to those who were born here and chose to make their lives here, like many of the people at this meeting tonight. I speak for many of us when I say we feel unheard and ignored by the very people we have elected to office. How much of the brunt will East Norwalk continue to endure? The converted Wells Fargo property, just to name one of the projects that has been very disruptive and unpopular among our residents, has become another one of Norwalk's forever projects. And its ripple effects are felt from the beginning of East Avenue all the way to Cove Marina and into the Calf Pasture Beach property. From the constant traffic to the random daily road closures and disruption of many of our local businesses, the frustration has begun to pour over into our entire community. Now we have yet another proposed forever project coming our way, while we still have many others that are far from completed. I ask the City Council
30 seconds remaining.
to reconsider the newly proposed roundabout and potential changes to Gregory Boulevard, and to perhaps use the grant monies to instead address more urgent issues and critical infrastructure needs in our town, and perhaps to add a larger police presence which can alleviate the occasional traffic and safety concerns that this new project seems to want to address. The people of East Norwalk are proud of their neighborhood, as anyone can see from the upkeep of their properties and businesses. We understand that the mayor and city council have expressed sympathy for the inconvenience to us. What?
Your time is up. If you could just finish your sentence, please.
Okay. We understand that the mayor and city council have expressed sympathy for the inconveniences to us over the past few years. However, sympathy is not what we have come here to request tonight. We are here to request your cooperation. Thank you.
Lou Caputo.
Good evening, council members. My name is Lou DeConto, 21 Victory Court. I don't have a prepared statement, but has anybody even had a thought about the tree now that's in this roundabout's way? But this is another thing that someone's gonna say, we never saw it. We didn't know about it. Just like the last tree that got taken down over on the end of Gregory Boulevard. And not only that, we keep talking about how much this is gonna cost. 3.5 million is what we've projected. We've only received the grant from the federal government at 850,000. Where does the rest come from? Where does it stop? We've had one of the largest tax increases we've had in a long time. And then now, once this gets started, we're gonna need to come up with the money. Are the other two roundabouts already funded fully? Is this one only gonna come out of our pocket, or all of them gonna come out of our pocket? At the end of the day, nobody here is gonna say, come up with another $1 million for us. It may come up, we might be able to get it. But at the end of the day, us residents are gonna end up paying for this because you've gotten too far and you can't stop it. This is a little too much. When your kid picks up some food from the grocery aisle and you say, I'm sorry, we don't have the money for it, you tell them to put it back. We're done. This is not our.
Please, be respectful.
Listen, I'm sorry, but this is, every time it comes back to our roost, to our pockets, and it's not fair. This is not fully funded. Anyway, the taxpayer money that we are getting is our money to begin with, and we don't want to spend it here. I thank you very much for your attention to this.
Thank you.
Diane Seavey.
Good evening. Is that better?
Yes.
I can hear myself, which I don't normally like. Before you start the clock there.
There's feedback though, Simon, and that's probably because of that microphone.
I think you're speaking. Okay. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, don't start the clock yet. Is that still feedback? Okay. Good? Is that good?
Maybe, yeah, I think it's okay.
You want me to go back?
I still hear a little bit.
Yeah, we can go back.
Yeah, go back to the other one.
Before you start the time clock, first of all, Diane CC, Homestead Place. I've been asked to present a petition on behalf of some community members that was, I think, just completed today in East Norwalk at Nick's Place. And in just a short amount of time, they got 57 signatures. The requirement was that everyone be a Norwalk resident or a property owner. And just as I was perusing it, I can see that many of the people who signed actually do live in the area, but I see addresses that I recognize from all over the city. I believe I counted 57 signatures on here. And for the record, the petition stated, we, the undersigned residents or property owners of Norwalk, strongly urge our city council to deny the $246,000 funding request to reconfigure Gregory, Fifth, Marvin, and Calf Pasture. Instead, to fund only the $29,000 fee for a concept design that city officials can present in person to the public for review and comments. And we'll submit this, these are original signatures, and we'll submit them for the record to the clerk. Okey doke. Okay, still Diane CC, Homestead Place. And speaking on behalf of ENNA, and I know that I did send an email to the council today as well, and also one yesterday to our in-district council members. And I also want to point out that I hope that you took into account the disparaging email that you received today in regards to the people who have questions about this project, and that you read ENNA's official response to it. We hope you continue to listen to residents speaking from their hearts and who have no agenda except a desire to preserve what little bit of heaven we have left here in East Norwalk. But while we still support the safety and quality of life improvements that would benefit us all. And that you'll see a clear path through compromise to satisfy those who are seeking to preserve what works and add some tweaks to improve it, and to those who want to push ahead to a possible costly project as a solution looking for a problem. In fact, that raises the issue of the unanswered questions from your last meeting. 2 questions were subsequently answered. The deadline for the federal funding, which we now know is 2029, and the request for the breakdown of the $246,000, which I'll speak to in a moment. As Mr. Hostin, I'm sorry. Sorry, apologies. pointed out some statistics were actually provided out of context, and he asked for specific breakdowns of resident requests in order to clarify those. He also asked, quote, "But I want to know what does mitigate dangers mean, right? When we think about this kind of traffic changes, which is potentially large and
30
disruptive,
seconds remaining.
is it going to be worth it from a safety perspective? Did we exhaust every option and think about how those could help address the problems that we're saying?" The breakdown of the contract amendments was provided, and that's key because we see now that just 29,000 of that is needed to get us to the point of conceptual design that could translate into a visual that the public would be able to clearly understand before you move ahead with any other action on this. Don't forget the actual project implementation is 3.5 million, and we're rushing ahead with that because we don't know what the commitment would be to Connecticut in the future. Council votes have consequences.
3 minutes.
In this, really? Yikes. I'm sorry, may I just indulge for another few
He may have
seconds?
started with the petition.
Thank
You
you.
may have one.
In this case, the voting to send it back to the revision doesn't have any negative consequences. The delay is negligible in terms of the timing of this. It's operated for decades safely with a minimum of verifiable accidents, most of which can be attributed to operator behavior versus road design. But a vote to advance the $246,000 does have consequences. It means fear and anxiety for residents that are most impacted, years and months of surveying, test pits, environmental, and then nonstop construction. Another point that I really want to make is that Mr. Bilella tells you that there will be no eminent domain taking, and that's true. But he does consistently mention numerous rights of way impacts. And I fear that many homeowners may find out for the first time tonight that the property they think they own and the property that they actually maintain is not their property. And so anything within that property that are fences, bushes, decorations, et cetera, sidewalks and parking become the city's right of way to take for this project. We urge you to send it back to committee and ask for a revised scope and contract for VHB to provide the 29,000. In closing, I want to read what may have been the quote of the night from your May 12th deliberation on this, Council Member Jalen Seed, who said, quote, "We have to make progress, but we can't use progress as an excuse to degrade the public trust." So I urge you to consider that tonight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak before I close public participation? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public participation and move on to resignations and appointments. Tonight, we have the appointment of Saj Oliver to the Arts and Cultural Commission. You can't hear now? Okay, so moving on to appointments. Tonight, we have the appointment of Saj Oliver to the Arts and Cultural Commission. Would someone like to make that motion?
Make that motion, Madam Mayor. So Mr. Oliver comes from a family of community activists. Former council member Sharon Stewart, who was your aunt, who served the city well, and your mother, who is actually sitting next to you, has also been a committed servant to the city of Norwalk. I believe you sat on the Fair Rent, still on Fair Rent. She was on the Tree Advisory Committee, and you are the DTC Vice Chair. So also very committed. I don't know when she sleeps, but I'm sure she does. She will tonight. But I think you've raised a young man who's seen what community engagement looks like. And so kudos to you, young man, for taking up the banner and deciding to volunteer and be on a committee. It's great to see young people take that on. And so I am happy to move your name forward for the Art and Culture Commission, particularly because you are very artistic. I think you are a musician. You might have some artistic ability as well. And so I think this is the appropriate space for you. And I'm just so looking forward to what you're going to contribute to the city of Norwalk and to that commission.
Any other comments? Mr. Seed?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything because Miss Young, she always says everything so well. But I've known Mr. Oliver for a long time, and we have conversations about him wanting to be involved and getting involved in the city. And I'm really happy that we found a spot for you, especially on the Arts Commission, one that's been one of the more turbulent items the past couple of years, especially with art in South Norwalk. And I think that it's really important that you're from South Norwalk to bring really a different perspective there. Not just being young, but just being from where we're from in South Norwalk and really having input on the art that's going on in that community. So I'm really excited for that, and just excited to see somebody young and somebody that I've known growing up with get involved in the city. So thanks for stepping up.
Any other comment? I have a few myself, if I may. I knew your aunt, and so, you know, we think of her very fondly often. Your mom is amazing, and, you know, we were talking, Sonia, and you mentioned that you had a son who was interested in getting involved. And I thought, oh, great, let me meet him. And it was so sweet when you did reach out. It was about the native site that was found at the Walk Bridge site. And when you came to talk about it, I was so impressed with your enthusiasm. And I thought, oh, this one's great. And so that's a whole different topic. And, you know, we're not going to go into that tonight, but your background in music, your background as a graphic designer, and the fact that you live in South Norwalk and you can offer a perspective that's really important. And that was really important to me in terms of making appointments to our boards and commissions. And so I'm very excited to have you, excited for your enthusiasm, and really glad that you're following in some great women's footsteps.
Yeah. And I think we need to not just say South Norwalk, but for all of the city.
Absolutely.
Because that is important. That it be spread across the city, and so that we become a more inclusive community. So I'm really impressed with you.
Thank you for that comment. All right, so let's vote. All in favor of the appointment of Saj Oliver, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And that is unanimous. And I would like to invite you down, and we can swear you in right now.
Come on, Mom.
Yeah, come on.
The pyramid.
Yep, go right on up. And so if you're going to raise your hand, I'm going to say you. And you're going to say okay. All right. So you, having been appointed as a regular member to the Arts and Cultural Commission of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury. I'll send this one. You have to take this. Okay. Do we have? Okay, let's go get you. Oh, sorry. Just get this. You get this. Oh, you get it. Just like that. Okay, there you go. Okay, next on the agenda is mayor's remarks. I would like to recognize Haitian Heritage Month. Earlier this month, the Haitian flag was raised at Heritage Wall. On behalf of our city, thank you to the Haitian community for your contributions, your traditions, and your continued commitment to building a welcoming and connected community for all. Happy Haitian Heritage Month, and thank you. I do hope everyone had an enjoyable Memorial Day, even though the weather disappointed us and we had to cancel the parade. But I do want to make sure that we acknowledge all the veterans, and we know we support you, not just on Memorial Day, but always. Let us honor the brave men and women of our armed forces who gave their lives in service to our country. They came from communities just like ours. They had families, friends, dreams, and futures, and they made the ultimate sacrifice so that future generations could live in freedom. I also want to remember the families who carry that loss every single day. Their sacrifice is part of the story of our nation as well. I want to ask that we carry forward a spirit of gratitude, service, and unity worthy of those we honor. On behalf of the City of Norwalk, thank you to our veterans, our military families, and everyone who helps keep the meaning of Memorial Day alive. May we never forget those who gave everything for our country. Coming up this weekend, Sono Saturday Market kicks off this Saturday, the last Saturday of the month on Washington Street. So the last Saturday of every month this summer from 11 to 3, vendors will be selling unique finds and handmade goods, as well as food and live music. The American Legion Post 12 celebrates For America 250 from 10 to 4. That is military vehicles and memorabilia, touch a truck, police department, and fire department displays. And Black Wall Street event on Friday at the Town Green from 12 to 5. Black-owned businesses and organizations are gathering for a celebration of culture, commerce, and community.
Mayor.
So make sure yeah, all of these are
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, all Saturday. It'll be an active day. And that is it. I will turn it over now to Council President Josh Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I go into the appointments, let's go next. Second, before we go to the consent calendar, I have a few appointments that are actually council appointments. And first, I'd like to move the appointments of Brian Bailey and Ann Wennerstrand to the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Brian is the council's non-voting member of the BET, and Ann Wennerstrand as the alternate non-voting member of the BET. Just to provide a little context, this was brought up during the charter revision process that the council should have a non-voting member of the BET that can participate in actions, but does not take a vote. This was part of the charter revision that was approved by the voters in November of 2025, and it required the council to pass an ordinance permitting this, which it did recently. And so now we are moving the appointment of Brian Bailey and Ann Wennerstrand to be members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation in a non-voting capacity. Anyone have any comments before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor? Yes. Congratulations.
Yeah, you can all vote.
All right.
All of you at the right.
And it is unanimous. I'd also like to move the appointments of Nicole Eady and Broderick Sawyer as members of the Affordable Housing Account Committee. This is a committee that was formed by ordinance a few years ago and was part of the affordable housing plan that was passed by the council last year. The council, per the ordinance, gets a couple council members get to sit on this commission. There will also be mayoral appointments that will be forthcoming at a later time. But we thought it was important to move forward council members Nicole Eady and Broderick Sawyer as members of the Affordable Housing Account Committee. Again, any comments before we take a vote?
May I just comment on the delay? For the rest of the members. So in order to honor the staggered terms established in the ordinance and preserve the committee's intended structure, we've decided to defer the appointments of the community members until our July 14th meeting. This will ensure that appointees will be able to serve the full terms outlined in the Affordable Housing Account Ordinance and maintain the integrity of the committee's original design. So I recognize you're doing your housekeeping all at once,
Yes.
But we will take care of this next
In July.
July.
Yep. That's not June.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's not quite June.
Not
It's
quite
almost
June.
June.
Almost June. Okay.
All right, with that, all in favor? All right, congratulations, everyone. Thank you, guys. And now, for the reading of the consent calendar, the one and only from District C, council member. Oh, Nicole always has appointments with favorite food. For all you know, you need to know, her favorite food is chicken. Now, for the reading of the consent calendar, council member Nicole Eady.
Hey, I hope y'all can hear me. I'm gonna try to go through this real quick. 7A, Finance and Claims Committee.
Narrative on tax collection, 1, narrative on tax collections dated March and April 2026. 2, monthly tax collectors reports dated March and April 2026. 3, claims committee report dated May 2026. 4, authorize NPS purchasing agent to purchase new Chromebooks from Vivacity Tech PBC for Nathan Hale, Honus Ridge, and West Rocks Middle School in the amount not to exceed $450,714.60 from the Student Technology Munis account noted. 5, authorize NPS purchasing agent to purchase new Chromebooks from the Vivacity Tech PBC for teachers in grades K to 5 in the amount not to exceed $219,450 from the Instructional Technology Munis account noted. 6, authorize a special appropriation for Public Works and Operations Department in the amount of $200,000 for recycling, yard, and food composting initiatives. Munis account noted. 7, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Gov Connection, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $335,369.05 for Palo Alto firewalls, 3-year renewals. Munis account number noted. 8, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Zoom Communications, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $12,300 for the annual renewal of 50 Zoom webinar accounts and 6 translated captioning accounts. Funding will be allocated from account number noted. 9, approve FY 2026-27 WPCA operating budget. C, Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs. 1, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Flax Hill Park and immediate surrounding grounds by EJ's Heart for their fitness celebration.
We missed items 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, I'm sorry. Under ordinance, B 3, 4, 5, approve 3, approve changes, chapter 32, Code of Ethics, section 1, title administration. 4, approve changes to chapter 32, Code of Ethics, section 3, definitions. 5, approve changes to chapter 32, Code of Ethics, section 12, Board of Ethics. C, Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs. 1, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Flax Hill Park and immediate surrounding grounds by EJ's Heart for their fitness celebration to be held on Saturday, June 6, 2026 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., approximately 80 people. 2, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Rowayton Elementary School field and immediate surrounding grounds by Rowayton Civic Association for their Porch Fest to be held on Saturday, June 6, 2026 from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. and set up at 8 a.m. and tear down by 8 p.m., approximately 3,000 people. 3, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Cat Pasture Beach and immediate surrounding grounds by 3rd Taxing District for their summer concert series to be held on Sunday, July 12th, 19th, and 26th, and Sunday, August 2nd, 16th, 23rd, 2026 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. with setup at 2 p.m. and tear down by 8:30 p.m., approximately 300 people. 4, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Oyster Shell Park and Veterans Park and immediate surrounding grounds by Club Connecticut for their O'Neill's 5K to be held on Sunday, June 7, 2026 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., approximately 400 people. 5, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Freeze Park by City of Norwalk Department of Recreation and Parks for their Tuesday night open jam and concert series to be held on Sunday, June 21st, 2026 and Tuesday, June 23rd and 30th, July 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th, and August 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th of 2026 from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., approximately 75 people. 6, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to enter into an agreement for the use of Matthews Park by Lockwood Matthews Mansion for their 19th annual Old Fashioned Flea Market to be held on Sunday, September 13th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with setup from 8 a.m. and tear down by 8 p.m., approximately 2,500 people. 7, approve the following resolution accepting the grant funding in the amount of $255,000 from the Connecticut Deep Long Island Sound Ecosystems Grant for work at Andrews Field. Be it resolved that it is in the best interest of the city of Norwalk, Connecticut to enter into contracts with the Department of Environmental Protection. In furtherance of this resolution, Barbara C. Smith, the mayor, is duly authorized to enter into and sign said contracts on behalf of the city of Norwalk. Barbara C. Smith currently holds the title of mayor and has held that office since November 5th, 2025. The mayor is further authorized to provide such additional information and execute such other documents as may be required by the state or federal government in connection with said contracts, and to execute any amendments, rescissions, and revisions thereto. 8, technical correction of the city council action, April 14, 2026. Items 8BAA and 8BAB. A, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a sole source purchase order to Northeast Scoreboards in an amount not to exceed $161,334.37 for the replacement of the Casa Grande Field scoreboard at Brian McMahon High School from accounts number noted. B, authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to issue change orders in an amount not to exceed $16,000 to Northeast Scoreboards for the replacement of the Casa Grande Field scoreboard at Brian McMahon High School from account numbers noted. 9, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to approve adjustments to the following fees for fiscal year 2026 through 2027 based on fee and charge structures, rate demands, and the cost of conducting recreation programs and using recreation and park facilities. E, Public Works. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Casboro All-Terrain Vehicles, Inc. in the amount of $20,422.21 for the purchase of parts to repair the beach cleaning machine. 2, whereas pursuant to CGS Section 32-285A, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is authorized to extend financial assistance for economic development projects, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the city of Norwalk make an application to the state for $10 million in order to undertake the Keeler Brook Pump Station Replacement Project and to execute an assistance agreement. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council for the City of Norwalk, 1, that it is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by Section 32-285A of the Connecticut General Statutes. 2, that the filing of an application for state financial assistance by City of Norwalk in an amount not to exceed $10 million is hereby approved, and that Barbara C. Smith, as the mayor of the city of Norwalk, is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to provide such additional information to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance, if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of City of Norwalk. 3, whereas pursuant to CGS Section 32-285A, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is authorized to extend financial assistance for economic development projects, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the City of Norwalk make an application to the state for $1,500,000 in order to undertake the Boughton Street Sewer Extension Project and to execute an assistance agreement. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council for the City of Norwalk, 1, that it is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by Section 32-285A of the Connecticut General Statutes. 2, that the filing of an application for state financial assistance by City of Norwalk in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 is hereby approved, and that Barbara C. Smith, as the mayor of the City of Norwalk, is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance, if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of City of Norwalk. I have read the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilmember Edie. The consent calendar having been read, all in favor? That appears to be unanimous. Thank you, Councilmember Edie. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. And on to item B1 ordinance, Mr. C.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that, item 1, approve changes to chapter 7, general provisions, article 2, city sales, section 10, custody. I'd like to, move that and speak to it. Yeah, so this one is pretty much, straightforward. This is about just protecting the integrity of our sale. Our city sale, and making sure that there's no mix-ups between local businesses using the sale without permission, and really placing that custody solely within the hands of the city clerk, like they belong. And I really just I'm gonna pass it over to my road dog, Councilwoman Nicole Ayers, who really flagged this item really at the beginning of this term, and we were able to just make some good progress. So I'd like to hand it over to Councilwoman Ayers.
Thank you, Road Dog. I don't know. Just briefly wanted to state that the sale of the city is a serious thing, and it should be sought at in that manner. And I was kind of put back when I was on Connecticut Avenue at a store, and a taxi rolled by me, and it had the seal of the city on there. And I kept on, no, that's not right. That really shouldn't be on there. So I began to ask questions because I just didn't understand how that would happen. So kudos to my colleagues on the ordinance committee. I really just came and said, hey guys, can you kind of look at this? And then we kind of went to a scavenger hunt because now I have to find this car that I said had a seal on it, but we found them. And we just want to make sure that we're respecting those things that represent our city, like our seal. Our seal tells the story of the city. It also represents how we show up in public spaces. So again, I'd like to say thank you to the ordinance committee for taking my observation very serious and making this ordinance to protect our seal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayerson. Are there any other comments? And thank you for your astute observation, because had it not been for that, who knows how many cars are driving around with the city. But my understanding is that the business was very cooperative, and you can talk to that.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mark, Local Corporation Council. Yes, we sent a letter to the owner of the taxi vehicles that had the city's logo on it, and they immediately responded and took action to remove them. And they were very polite and apologetic and quite frankly, very professional. So they certainly responded in a great way, and we appreciate that as well.
And well done to the ordinance committee. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And that is unanimous. Item B2 under ordinance, Mr. C.
So this is item 2, approve new ordinance, final disclosures and impacts of ordinances. I'd like to move that and speak briefly to it.
Sure.
So this is another one that was brought by Councilwoman Ayers. She really showed persistence. This is something that she's been working on for well over a year. And I was really happy that we could bring this up. One, because what it does is it just helps us as a council govern better. So that when we pass ordinances, we really know upfront what the financial impact of that ordinance is going to be. That's something that's been done on the state level and on the federal level. And like our CFO, Mr. Smith said, it really just helps us plan 5 years out, 10 years out, so that we know where we stand. So again, I'm just going to really thank all the members of the ordinance committee that worked really hard to iron this out. Also Corporation Council with Brian Candela and everybody on the team that really just helped move this forward. But a big shout out to Councilwoman Ayers, who was really persistent with this. She showed her print like Tracy school, and really was persistent with this and did a lot of work, a lot of groundwork to present this to us. And I'd like to just hear that over.
Thank you, Council Person C. So this ordinance is really about smart governance. It's about being transparent. It's about us having all the information we need to make decisions. And it's hard to plan for a city of our size if we don't know the financial impact of ordinances. And too often I've heard sitting in this seat, city workers come and just say, I don't know how we're gonna implement it. You guys are passing it, but we really don't know how we're gonna implement it. So this gives us just a little bit more information to make sure that we're making the best decisions with the information we have at our hand. For my colleagues who are new to this table, this is also a testament of not giving up. Because when I first brought this to the council, it was not well received. My colleagues and people like to make the assumption that just because we all share party affiliation, we all get along, and that's just so untrue on so many levels. But it just didn't sit well with some of my colleagues. They couldn't understand why we wanted the information, and I just had to be persistent. And my grandmother used to tell me, an empty wagon makes a lot of noise. And when you push me, I make a lot of noise. And I do also have to acknowledge President Josh in this instant, because he dared me to do something I never had to do before, but now I have a skill and I can do it again. He told me to write an ordinance, and I'm a girl that doesn't back down. So I wrote an ordinance. Now it's not perfect. It's not the final draft, but I was able to give the ordinance committee something to work with, something to start. And I took it a true pleasure to do my due diligence and talk to people, not only on the state level, but also people in other municipalities and other people in other states, and ask them how do they do what they do. And so as Councilperson Seed says, this was about 2 years, about 2 years in the making. And I'm just so happy on tonight that this ordinance is passed. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Sayers. Ms. Winterstrand.
I would just like to chime in and say thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Ayers. It was a real privilege actually to see the evolution as a member of the ordinance committee, to see how it evolved, and to really do the deep thinking about when we have an idea for an ordinance, or a constituent brings an idea for an ordinance to us, we have to really think through, like, what are the staff needs? What are the resources? How are we going to enforce this? And I think that you've really codified this and done us a tremendous service, so that we'll be able to continue to think through very, very thoughtfully when something comes before us. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Winterstrand. Other comments? Mr. Lopez.
Congratulations to Councilwoman Ayers. I know, but still, I don't have to speak too often in terms of congratulations, but for proposing such an important idea, reforming in a way that really provides transparency for all ordinances. And much too often we get criticism from folks that, claim to value fiscal financial transparency or financial aspects in every sense, but are misinformed and speak of it in very vague generalities. So I applaud you. I know it's taken a really long time. I had your back since day one, but I'm glad that the public can see it and really take this serious. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's like my birthday.
Mr. Hosner.
I also congratulate you. I also like the point. I want to reiterate that, because I think a lot of folks, it doesn't seem that way from the outside, but I think it's a really great point to reiterate that just because we have a similar party affiliation does not mean we always agree on everything. In fact, because of our party affiliation, we often disagree, and this is a great instance of conversation getting us to consensus. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Mr. C.
I just wanted to take a note to just say from the ordinance committee, Ms. Ayers isn't on the ordinance committee. And I just wanted to point out that I really do, as I said before, open it up that just everybody in the ordinance committee is not the only people that can come up with good ordinances or good ideas. Constituents or any member on the council could really come up with some good ideas, and we're open to bringing those and presenting them and moving them forward. And anybody who has an idea or proposal can just shoot it over and we'll get to work. Like Mr. Lopez already knows.
Ms. Young.
So, Ms. Ayers, I think it was more than 2 years that you talked about this. Let's be real. It sounds like more like 3 or 4. And so I just applaud you for your tenacity and stick to it. But really, what you've done is what we should be doing. And it doesn't matter their party affiliation. This is our job. And so anytime we can come up with solutions or ideas that help to move us forward in a meaningful and positive way for residents, because we all live here, that's what we're supposed to do. And so you just exemplified that. And so I really appreciate that. And you stuck to it, right? We're not quite there, but we're almost there. I think at the next meeting, it will be we're gonna do it right now. So we're almost there. So I just appreciate you, and it just goes to show that we all have something to share. We all have something to give, and so no matter what it is, you need to do that and speak up. There's no wrong thing or a question or answer or proposal. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I too would thank you. And, you know, for your tenacity and doing the work and bringing it to the ordinance committee. Enforcement is a priority for me, definitely a priority, and in so many different ways. You know, I've been working with Corporation Council to improve our blight and zoning enforcement. I know that, you know, the ordinance committee has already addressed snow removal, and that's going to be an ongoing discussion in Public Works and you know, looking to do that. You know, how do we best enforce our noise ordinance? And, you know, we have so many ordinances that we really need to look at financially. And I'm very grateful that our CFO will be involved and you know, have a feel for what's going to be involved, because, you know, moving our ordinances forward, we need to know what we're dealing with and we need to be prepared for it. So I really applaud you, and I am ready to call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed? Abstentions, and that is unanimous. Well done. Okay, on to economic and community development. Now, item 1, I'm going to move, we talked about this before, we'll move that to the end. That's the CDBG HUD plan, so that members who are recusing themselves can just leave. And we will go ahead and move item 2 under economic and community development. Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is 2A, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute an amendment to the contract between the city of Norwalk and VHB for design and engineering services for the Gregory Boulevard Roundabout and 5th Street Shared Use Path Project in amount not to exceed $246,000. And authorize the director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking to execute orders on the contract between the city of Norwalk and VHB for design and engineering services for the Gregory Boulevard Roundabout and 5th Street Shared Use Path Project for a sum not to exceed $24,600. Account number noted, and I would like to move this and briefly speak to it. Well, thank you, Mayor. So 2 weeks ago, obviously we were here, and after a presentation from TMP and a robust discussion, we tabled this item with the intention of learning more information in these past 2 weeks to help us make a more informed decision, as well as additional community engagement. In that time, I want to thank TMP, Jim Travers, Garrett, Ben, Nell, and your whole team for the great efforts to make sure that the project website on the TMP portion of the city's website was updated, including a whole host of materials. A number of council members also in the past 2 weeks attended a recent meeting of the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association, myself included. And this past Thursday, Majority Leader Jalen Seed and I joined and co-hosted a community conversation in East Norwalk with District C council members Ann Winterstrad and Nicole Eady, and at-large member and East Norwalk resident Jesse Buckle. I really appreciate everyone who came out to the forum. Many of you are here today and reached out to us online, by phone, and in person. I have enormous empathy for a community that has had a lot of construction and change and dealing with a lot of sort of construction issues over the last several years. I also have enormous empathy for all the people who contacted us, whether you support it, oppose it, qualify it, everything in between. We received a whole mixed bag of comments, and we're all constructive. And I just want to appreciate, first of all, everyone who reached out to us and who was engaged in the process. And I honestly like that there's so many people that are here tonight. I think engagement in government and being here, especially in face-to-face, is something that should not be taken for granted. And I also learned a lot through this process. And I think that one of the things that I take from it is the importance of public safety, especially in our most crucial intersections. And the Gregory Boulevard, this particular intersection, and especially the issues on Fifth Street, are really important. And we've learned a whole host of concerns from a variety of residents. I also want to thank my colleagues, each of whom were involved and engaged. And I just want to really just say that this is government at its best, is really listening to people and engaging with people. But it's not all about me, because there are 15 people here who have a diverse set of opinions and thoughts. And I want to defer to my colleagues, our District C Council people, Nicole Eady and Ann Wennerstrand, who did an incredible amount of work on this. And I want to make sure that they are heard in this discussion as we discuss this.
And are we going to have an opportunity to also?
Oh, yeah, of course. And with us here today, Jim Travers and Garrett Lowe, the director and assistant director of TMP, along with Ben Young and Nell Blasiewicz. Sorry, I just totally messed up your name. From TMP. I know that there were some questions the members had, and they are here tonight to answer your questions.
Yeah, come on up, Jim.
Oh, thank you. Sorry to first. First, and for the record, I guess my name is Jim Travers. I'm the Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking. I think what I first and foremost would like to do is thank you for taking the time to engage with this on all levels. I believe that the team did a fantastic job in my absence of answering questions. I don't know more that I could add to that, except for a couple of things. I just wanted to point of reference for a couple of things that I heard this evening that were brought up. One of them being the contract itself, right? So every contract, every agreement that we go through in the city goes through our purchasing department that has a requirement for a low bid contract. The same fell through with this one. We went through an amended contract to understand what would be the possibilities. Like what is the right of way? What area do we have to work in? Which led us to understand, can we actually do something, right? The something was something that we put in front of you last week or 2 weeks ago, was a request to extend a contract to have the community conversations to understand what improvements may look like in the future, right? But I think it's important to understand what got us here, right? When we talk about community engagement, what got us here was a letter that I got from a resident who had a car exit the highway and end up on her property, right? Coming closer to her house, very fearful. An email that talks about we could just. Okay. So this was going to be in the thing, but it can go down. This was just an email that brought up from a neighborhood that Garrett and I went out and met, right? And this was really just the start of the process, that really came, about, what can we do, right? And I think in looking at this, we started to engage about what can be, right? So I think when we talk about it, it really did start from the community itself, right? About looking at what we can do, right? I think there was a host of things, but other things about, I think there was a conversation where, we would move the monument. I want to be very clear. The conversation, we never had any conversations about moving the monument. There was never any plan. In fact, all the preliminary work that we have done was to not move the monument. I think this is, we'll stop at this photo here. This is an adjacent property, which boulders were put around the property by prior staff members. because vehicles exiting the roadway ended up on the property, here as well, right? So I think that was some of the issues that we had when we look at, we saw that, some of the accidents that we had around here were people exiting the roadway. These were really the things that brought us, right? I think the issues about Fifth Street were really brought to us by so initially our look at was what would be the roundabout itself, right? I think the roundabout itself led into an understanding that is creating other issues at adjacent streets, right? The lack of controls that exist on Fifth Street. We hear from Fifth Street neighbors on multiple occasions, and I think that is largely the email that you received earlier today, signed by these 45 people who have been adamant for things to be done, right? I think the issue of what it looks like was, it would be an extension of the NRVT path, a reduction of parking, to understand that really reducing travel lanes starts to reduce speed, right? And that really came from that. That's why we put it in the initial proposal, but it was also baked in the proposal is to work with the community on a couple of different designs. I think for all of you who I've worked with in the past 5.5 years, I hope the one thing that you got from our relationship here is that we define our plan by the conversations that we have with the community, right? We don't come with the community. We come with the starting point, right? Because I think that's how we start the conversation. But in every situation, those conversations have evolved, and they have evolved the design, right? So I think that first and foremost, what we put in front of you was a safety issue, right? And I think it is we were alerted to a safety issue by residents who contacted us, right? We observed those safety concerns and we put forth, what could be, right? Quite honestly, I think those are the things that help us be a better city, right? We were equally alerted to safety concerns on Seaview, right? Not to say anything, negatively about it, but I think we did hear conversations from members of the committee as well, or the council as well, when we had a terrible tragedy that existed on Seaview, right? And maybe that tragedy could have been avoided if we had reacted, right? And we had responded to something, right? There's always a what if, right? And I still think it's a great project to move forward when we can. This project is one that we do. But I think what I want to leave you with is what I think is a visual of what we get to see, right? And we put a traffic camera up last Tuesday afternoon in response to what it is. We put it up for 4 hours. And in 4 hours, we got 5 incidences where people are confused at the operations of the roundabout, all right? And we are looking to just clarify that. Ben, if you could just run this. Or not. The best laid plans are, so give us 1 second, let us run. So you see here, right, with just confusion of just people operating, without any control, right? Without any clear yield markings.
Madam Mayor.
Can we please be respectful?
Yes.
Please.
So
Public
you
comment
see,
is over, so please be respectful.
yes. So there's a mixture of cars that are navigating through there without any control, right? You'll see those. Right there, people don't know what to do. Like you saw here, right? This person stopped because they didn't know what to do. This person stopped because this didn't know what to do. The person behind them actually started to pass them on the left at the same time that they're all entering into it, right?
Excuse me, please.
Okay. Again, you just have people inside the roundabout not understanding the operations, right? There's also an extensive amount of asphalt, right? So it adds to, the challenges. You see, there's two, the same thing is happening, again, which way to go, but again, the person is looking to pass on the left when the other person stops, right? The same is occurring again where they're both stopping. I think one of the things that you'll see here is there's also a fair amount, there's a fair amount of people biking, fair amount of people walking, throughout the intersection. Again, here, this person's going, this person's coming. This is a hard braking mechanism that's occurring there, right? Again, the guy stopped in the middle of the intersection, not sure which one, where to go. And I'd point out, this is a Tuesday afternoon, largely, it's our residents. It's not a Saturday that may have visitors into the beach, but just our residents that are in there. I think there you see almost a near miss in there. There's one lane, two cars fighting for the occupancy of that one lane in the upper right here. And then this guy bypasses it altogether. He goes right in there and taking a left, right? I think that was just our 4 hours that we looked at that just said, watching the operation, there's something that we could do to make it better, right? And I think that's what we put in front of you is an opportunity to engage the community to make this better, right? But it should be noted that the funding, we gave an estimate of 3.5 because we don't have a design, right? We have concepts, but what we know is the design would be incorporated through Fifth Street because of conversations that we had with those Fifth Street neighbors, right? They have been in our office multiple times. I think there's a fair amount of frustration that's building, right? And I think we would want to engage this through Marvin down to Calf Pasture Beach, and then also into the Marvin Beach, down Gregory into the Marvin Beach. So it's the process is the project area is quite large, right? For a small, so it's not simply just a roundabout. So that was a little understated. I think we really wanted to expand the project area. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know what more questions, like what new items that we could bring to you, but I have the team here. We're happy to do that. But I think what we put in front of you is a safety issue, and it's up to you on whether we take it. Right? Yes.
Thank you, Jim. I think that it would be really helpful to focus and help us think through the process of what we're actually voting on tonight, which is an amendment to the contract that, in my understanding, will enable us to bring a concept plan to the public for public engagement.
So it'd be so we would work with, so what we engage first, the first part of the contract. So we were asking for amendment. The first part of the contract is really sitting there to set the stage to see what can be done.
Right.
What do we have for right of way? And I think in the project itself, we asked for 2 concept plans. I think the reality is we can say 10, but this is a smaller project area, right? And if we're not going to move a monument, we're not going to do this. We're going to be limited to the opportunities of which we can do so that we do not take right away. So with none of this was any plan to take any public right away, right? So I think that would be to work with the community on devising a plan that brings a safer intersection, right? That brings a safer intersection for all road users, right? I think, we showed, in a very short period of time, the number of vehicles that are going in there, but there was also a fair number of people walking and there's a fair number of people biking. And it is a connection to the beach, right? That we think is important and a huge asset there. So throughout the whole entire process, the consultant would be working with the community.
Can I follow up questions? So if that is the initial objective, right, is to come up with a concept plan to engage the community. Can you just talk about and walk us through what the process how the process evolves before construction is even considered?
All right, so I think the first part of it would be to settle on a design, right? And then from a design, it would be, create construction documents, right? That's a lengthy process, right? I think for an example of that, 5 years ago, I think we started this same process on Wall Street, right? When we looked at, what can we do with Wall Street, and that, excuse me, that concept evolved, right, to what is now a $31 million project. But we really heard from the community. It started out as an intersection, but it just expanded because we heard, 4 decades of studies, and we really wanted to do something. Excuse me. So the process of design is complex, right? And it also has to, it also has to pass by everything that we do has to go through CONDOT, right? Which is yet another process, and it goes back to committee. So it would be to create, 90% design plans, because I believe that that is the best opportunity that the city has to lay the groundwork to look at funding opportunities that do not come from our taxpayers, right? And yes, grants are either state or federal, and at some point in time, it's all going to come from our money, right? And I agree, right? But I think that we could limit that burden while providing an opportunity, and look at funding opportunities that are out there. We have been extremely lucky, I think, in all honesty, in my experience. We have been extremely lucky getting grants through our department, right? And those grants have largely been from the passion that I think we feel for the projects. But most funders are looking for shovel-ready projects that will have an instant return on investment, right? They want to see, the project not take 5 years to do, but take shorter period of use. And the only way that can happen is to have projects on the shelf, right, that are ready and looking for funding. So it would be, even if the design process itself would take about 12 to 18 months to complete. Right. And then we have to look for funding opportunities, and for funding opportunities that's different, right? Depending on what sources that are out there.
Excuse
right?
me, please. Let's be respectful.
Thank you. So it's a lengthy process, right? And I think what anytime that we would look to start the process, we would look, we would look, before that if there was construction to be had, right? We would look at, what is the times of construction? What are other things that are going on? I recognize that, there's a lot of construction, right, that are going on, for, a multitude of reasons, one of them being Walkbridge, which is, extremely disruptive. Like we know it, right? I think it's a challenge to do, and I think we would need to be respectful about what this comes for the next one. Right? And but I think, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I have more questions.
Okay.
But I also know that my colleagues may have questions. I'll just because this is really related. So in terms of the way that you incorporate feedback, you've already been getting feedback through the website. This has been a process. You've been out talking to the community since 2021 about this particular. So what is an example, or what is a way that you can kind of walk us through how a community's feedback actually gets incorporated? What are the kinds of things that community members are really weigh in, that are meaningful, that have impact on the evolution of your projects?
So I think it's important, right? And I think that's a really valuable question, because it is one that started this process, right? When we talk about transparency, I think we were very much trying to be transparent, right? The minute that we had the concept to move forward, and we were able to identify a grant source for design funding, right? We approached gave out 50 flyers at Mayor's Night Out in East Norwalk in advance of a contract being signed, with the anticipation that a contract would be signed, right? To start the community process, and that community process was then, a public meeting that we had looked to take place in June. I don't know that that's a possibility at this point, given the fact that we didn't have the contract signed, and we still have, a number of, a lot of work to do to get it. But even if it was signed, right away, whether we would be able to make that next one, but it would be the first community conversation that we started talking, it would be before design's done. It would be, with a concept, of this is a possibility. This is what we can do right within the right of way. I think, what we want to do is get out with the community, about what is, like a somewhat vetted process in which we could do, because, we also had, AI drawings put out, and we were flooded with people coming in and saying, you're taking our property. And again, we've been fielding those of just like, we're not taking any property, but those weren't us. But I think anytime you put a document out there, it becomes, people become concerned, right? And we wanted to make sure that the document that gets put out after we've had the community vet in on what are some of the possibilities.
Other questions? Mr. Hoskin.
Yeah, thank you. Just an observation. Oops, Jim. And just to say, it was helpful for me to hear some of that historical context about, sort of the initial outreach that y'all received about safety concerns at this intersection, and some of the step-by-step things that happened in the interim to get us to this point. It's a lesson, I think, for me personally. I think one, we know that every time we solicit public feedback, which we are lucky, and I mean that we're lucky to have in this city. It's often diverse. There are a lot of folks who feel very passionately one way, and a lot of folks who feel equally passionately the other way. And sometimes it's hard for us to see the other perspective. But at the same time, even for us, many of us who are very engaged with what's going on in the city, some of that historical context of what happened back in 2022 was not apparent when we resumed the discussion this year. So it's helpful to have that historical context. One of the things I've heard amongst the breadth of feedback from folks who feel very passionately one way or the other is that we all agree that, safety comes first, right? Nobody wants somebody to have a very unfortunate situation or loss of life, et cetera. Like we saw on the video you just showed, so many near collisions on a random Tuesday afternoon. I know from personal experience, and it's not something I wish on anybody, that the feeling of going back and wishing you had done something different can be gut-wrenching. And I know I wouldn't wish that on anybody here. And so, I think with some of those learnings, as we, always try to be better in how we approach government. And we talked earlier about how we have conversations and we disagree, and sometimes it takes that to come to consensus. I do see, I really, by the way, appreciate the response to that feedback to first, solicit some funding and then come up with a general schematic and then, use that to solicit more feedback. I really applaud that. And, I think that given some of the learnings we'll have from this experience, that will help us do better the next time. I think but that's not a reason not to move forward tonight. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's, if I can, I do think it's a challenge when projects take that span over a long period of time, right? And then there becomes breaks or pauses, right? I think we have had, we've been diligent about attempting to secure funding through this. And I think that we have had a couple of almost funding, right? For design, and construction is how it looks. I think, we were very close to one, and it was pulled out in the last federal bill. And then we had a state one that it was just, it's competitive, right? The grants are extremely competitive, and we have been, very gracious to be the recipient of a number of those, but it's not a guarantee, right? And I think the only thing that we have right now is a guarantee of funding to get us through design so that we can have an understanding of what we could look like at the end of the project. But I do think that we have to, look at every opportunity that we can to create safer roads, right? And I think I say that, for, a multitude of things, right? One of them being, I was a recipient of that as well. So, I was on city business. I was driving my city car. My city car was totaled by a distracted driver, who was coming down a very wide road, and I was stopped at a red light. So we're still dealing with those. But when that tragedy hit Seaview, I take those things personally, right? I think we look at every opportunity that we can to create safer roads. And I think that in the city, as a partnership under the previous administration and really supported by this current administration, we're seeing unprecedented results. If you want to give me one last slide that we have, I know that I told you to disconnect, but I think this one's an important one. And last year was our first full year on Complete Streets. Complete Streets is more than simply just how we design a road or how we build a road, but it's how we collectively work together, the police department, our bike walk commission, our neighbors in the community, and how we design roads, right? So last year was the highest amount of sidewalks that the city has ever installed in any given year in its entirety, right? And what we saw here was a decrease of motor vehicle crashes of nearly 28%. And a decrease of pedestrian accidents by 14.606%, right? That is the one that I want to talk about, right? Because those are our most vulnerable road users. But when I had this conversation with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, what I got from them is, you have something that's going on here that we're not seeing. The state for 2020, for last year, 2025, I can't forget what year it is, right? The state saw the highest amount of pedestrian crashes in our history, and they had a 41% increase. But yet we had a
I'm sorry, is there a way to make the slide a little bigger, please?
Or if people on Zoom can see it. 'cause I
Yeah,
don't think
I'm
they
not
can.
sure it's being shared. Is it? Oh, sorry. Is it? No.
No, that's not being shared.
They can share. Okay.
So, it's a 14% decrease, and I think that's something that we should really, applaud, right? And that's a concerted effort of council changing how we look at roads, how we maintain roads, how we move forward, how, our police enforcement, is up. It's a partnership with everything. And I think it's one of the things that we want to strive for, right? Is how do we come better? Because these things over a long period of time really creates a livable community. And it's those things that we're just striving to do, right? And we put these ideas in front of you, right? And then you have an opportunity to say, hey, this is something you want me to do. This is something that we don't want you to do, right? So I think it's our job to look at what those opportunities are and to give you information. And I hopefully over the past couple of weeks, that's what we did. I do agree with you. I think that it's a challenge when we have projects that span multiple years, and how do we reignite all of the past information on this, in a process that we also want to understand, finding funding is challenging. And, so I hear you, and I think that we could look to do better next time.
Mr. Lopez.
Okay, so my quick question. So if I understand correctly, when I reviewed the documentation, I reviewed the backstory, the comments back in 2020, the recent comments in favor, not in favor, those in favor with some adjustments. And correct me if I'm wrong, this didn't appear out of thin air. I mean, this was a culmination of years of service requests by residents for increases in pedestrian traffic safety. Is that?
Yeah, so I think it initiated really coming from the community for looking at traffic safety. We've had a number of calls. I think, some residents on Fifth Street have been extremely vocal to us for improvements, which is why we looked, the initial call out was for, the roundabout and its operation and its connection to Calf Pasture Beach, right? And then it first became into conversations with the Marvin Beach Association about, how people are just kept exiting off of, coming down, Gregory onto, towards, through the roundabout, through the traffic circle and down there at higher rates of speed and how we can combat that. And then it led into conversations with Fifth Street. And, my commitment to Fifth Street is that we will include you in the larger project, right? And because, it would be difficult to find funding for traffic calming measures just for one. So we'll incorporate this into the larger one. So it has been through multiple conversations.
And a quick follow-up. And so with respect to the alternatives, and it seems to me based on the review of documentation, the city has been experimenting with alternatives since I think 2020. Is that accurate?
So I think So one of the first proposals that we looked at is what could we do with paint? And paint didn't get the support of the traffic authority. And in fairness, it is very difficult. It would be a lot of paint on the ground. I think one of the earlier renditions that we put out for that was recently put up, and it was a lot of paint on the ground, right? And I think that was some of the concerns, that it was a lot of paint, and then that paint in inclement weather, it often gets hidden, right? So it didn't win the support to do it, and we were asked to look at something larger, which is what we did.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Degenshine.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding everything based on comments that I've heard this evening and letters that I've received as a council person. Number one, VHB was already contracted to do work on this project. And what we're talking about today is an expanded project that includes now Fifth Avenue. It makes sense to incorporate Fifth Avenue from the standpoint of concerns that have been raised between the initial contract and now, which include speed, which include parking, and which include bicycle path. And because this is on the Norwalk River Valley Trail, it does make sense to have safe bicycle movement through this area. That's just an editorial comment on my part. But what we're looking at is a multitask project. There was a phase concept design previously. That design concept has been expanded to include Fifth Street, which it hadn't been before. So far, I'm correct in what I'm talking about.
So Fifth Street, and then also heading down towards Marvin Beach as well, right? So yes.
The other aspect of this is the funding that we have in place right now. From what I understand, it was grant money, some from the state, some from the federal government, and it's very competitive. The warrant had to be there, and with every other project, every other place in the country, not including Venezuela and Cuba, but for those other areas in the country, this was found to be worthy of funding just to find out what the project should be. And if this project were to be denied, the money would still be coming from our pockets in the same amount, but it would be going to someplace else, whether it's somewhere else in Connecticut or somewhere else in the Northeast or anywhere else in New York, in the country. So we're not saving money by not doing the project, assuming that the project does continue through. We're benefiting, and others are helping to support and subsidize what the state and the federal government deem as one that is necessary to be constructed. That's, again, somewhat editorial, but
Yes, I did. Just also when you did talk about, cycling activity, and one of the things that I think was talked about by my team in my absence, this is the second highest crash intersection that we have for cyclists. And I think there was also a comment, well, what about the first? Well, the first is we also were recipients of a Reconnecting Communities grant, and because the first intersection is on West Avenue, and that intersection we'd be looking at that intersection along with its entirety of really reconnecting South Norwalk into the Wall Street area. The Reconnecting Communities grant was a grant that we were awarded for the devastating work that highways did in dividing communities. And then we have that, we have the double whammy here where we have, an east-west and a north-south, east-west and north-south, yes, where we have, 95 and Route 7 really dividing, communities. So how can we work to that? So, but understanding that is also what happens in that is that intersection is our highest crash intersection for cyclists that we're equally trying to go after as well.
Thank you. And the other comments I have are just observations. Over the course of the last month, there've been a lot of comments. There's a lot of talk among council members. A lot of letters came through. Heard a lot of presentations from the public on both sides of the project over the course of these last couple of meetings that we've had. And all of this now becomes public knowledge. The meeting that was held last Thursday is public knowledge. And all of this is a wealth of information that, in my experience, no design professionals possess. They never get this. So I wanted to express my gratitude toward everybody in this room and toward those who are listening elsewhere, those who aren't here now, who are concerned about this, who have expressed their concerns. Because it is through that process that we learn more about what needs to be done. Somebody mentioned that we're putting the cart before the horse. Well, we are putting the cart before the horse, but in this case, it's good because we're able to get comments and color into the project that wouldn't otherwise have been there at the start of a project. Usually a designer is looking at an empty easel, an empty canvas. So we're really at a benefit in this case. I also wanted to mention that whether the date is June 22nd or pushed a little bit later because of time issues, we're only talking about task 1, which you had on the board before, which is the concept design. The concept design is raising an idea up for others to comment on. And until we have a design, which we need to pay a small portion of the fee for, we won't have anything to talk about. So it is a very first and very important step to take. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate what Ms. Cece said before about going as far as the concept design. And from what I can gather, that's as far as we're going to go until we receive more comments. And from every design that I've been involved with and from every design professional that I've been involved with from one side of the table or the other, there is feedback and designs are changed, they're modified, and they're improved. So I think that we are headed in the right direction on this. I just wanted to say one more thing and stress it, something that you said, something that Councilperson Huston has said, and that is that we can't afford to have one tragedy, one issue, one accident, whether it's just a fender bender, whether it's sideswiping a bicycle, or whether it's a death. We just can't afford to have one more. And if by the process of this and by the funds that have been granted to us, we can do something to remedy it, I'm all for it.
Ms. Ayers.
Thank you. Even though I do not agree with some of the conduct of the people in the galley, I do think that they have a right to pose some questions. And Jim, I am a strong support of you and your department and the work that you have done And I have been able to see how you, in my neighborhood, took public participation, even when you didn't think it was gonna be the best thing, but leave it into plans. In my conversations with you, you have often reminded me that you're doing what's best for the city and the people that live here. So one thing I want to bring up is the confusion that's going around. People have a right to do what people are gonna do, even though sometimes they have the right intention, their hearts are in the wrong place. And so when it was brought to the council's attention about the statue, I was like, wait, where's this coming from? We never had a conversation about a statue. We never ever said anything about touching the statue. So I thank you for clearing that up, because sometimes things are put out in the air and it picks up like wildfire. And then we go, well, what's going on? Because we never, that was not even anywhere that our mind was gonna go. This young man here with his wife, I do appreciate his comments. I'm calling you a young man today, you should smile. I appreciate his comments and his passion, but I wanna talk about cost, right? I wanna know, it also was brought up with another gentleman who equally passionate, I guess we could say, about how much something costs and how much it costs to do this. I'm always of the frame of mind that time is money. And the more you waste time, the more you waste money. Can you speak very briefly about the cost and the not only the breakdown of the cost, because we have that information, but the cost comparative of us not doing our due diligence in sending this out to bid? I know the answer, but I would like you to speak to that first.
So I think so a couple of things. I think, we broke down the larger scope of the project into the sub costs of what each goes. But I think it's important to note that those costs then are really dependent on all of them bundled together, which is what we attempt to do with coming out to get the best the use of our tax dollars. I think that we very much try to be good stewards of people's tax dollars, and whether it's a grant funded tax, whether it's our capital funding, I think we are very diligent in doing that. So the issues of breaking it out doesn't necessarily mean that that's the one cost. That's the cost when we bundle, right? So the cost that we have in the concept portion of it, is part and parcel of what would be to advance the part of the project. I think, in going out to bid, we do two things, right? So we in TMP, we vet vendors based on qualifications into putting out for on-call consultants to do a variety of different tasks, right? So, we have one task of work that we do that's really road design, but we're also doing, traffic signals, we're doing, we do parking, we do a host of other things. So we have contractors who we've pre-vetted with our purchasing department to be qualified or on call. And then we take a second project to that is when we have an individual project, that individual project goes out to those groups. And again, it's a competitive bid and we do the low bid. In this instance, we did that initial bid with VHB. They won the bid and we chose to extend the contract because they had preliminary work that we would then need to it would have to, when you start to look at survey work, then someone doesn't take somebody else's survey work. They want to do their own survey work. So now we're going to be paying twice for a project that, a part of the project that we did there. So we do think that this, first and foremost, we didn't say, hey, let's take the money and let's run, right? I think the first and foremost part of it we did is said, what are the possibilities? Is there a possibility? Can this work, right? And right from the get-go, we challenged the consultant we're not moving the monument, so can we do something that improves the monument, that improves operations, that could look at it within the public right of way? And I think that's, that's what we were able to then advance and move forward, and then get us to a point that we asked to amend the contract to get this done. But we would work with them throughout the entire process to get it there. Did I answer your question? I think
You did. The second part of it, and you brought up something else. You talked about vetting. Let's just briefly address these AI drawings that people are passing around. Those AI drawings, have they been vetted by these people in purchasing and these other consultants that we pay?
So I think AI is new, and I think it's, I think it's here, right? And I think we need to find ways to do it. But I think, even in our universities and colleges, we're still trying to figure out that, how we do this. I think they've not been vetted. And in fact, I think it's dangerous to turn around and say, like, we could do, this is what we can do. I think, we solicited fear into some people who felt that, I just put in a new patio, you're gonna take it. And, well, we didn't do it, right? And so you're taking my property, we're not taking, so it starts, I think it's easy to turn around and say, hey, let's insert roundabout in here, right? But I think what we are really proposing, and I believe that Garrett talked about this when I watched some previous notes, is that we were looking for a peanut-shaped roundabout, right? And it's not new to traffic engineering. We're not the first people to do it. It's been out there. But the reason that we were looking at a peanut-shaped roundabout is so that we can make sure that we keep the monument in its current location, right? So those are things that have to come into play, right? Insert circle in this square. Yes, that's, I think, what AI could do, right? But really take into consideration, what are the property limits that we have there? What are the things that we don't want to move? What are the things that, the issues that we're trying to address? How do we incorporate an NRBT connection, understanding that we're pathways to the beach? Those are all things that, maybe at some point in time, AI will be there to do, right? Hopefully later than I will still have a job for a little while later. But I think, it's more complex than that. And I think it's sometimes simplistic, approach to it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing. It's, the work that we do is sometimes hard, right? So.
Thank you for that.
But
Again, I'm gonna try to see the good in people and think that they didn't do the AI to be harmful, but to do the AI drawings to start a conversation. I choose to see the good in people. But the vetting process for any municipality is what reduces our risk management, and it also removes the liability of a municipality. And sometimes we talk about the cost, but we forget about risk management, and we also forget about the liability, which is also something that has to go through everything we do. And the last thing I'm gonna bring up, I'm very sensitive to the East Norwalk neighborhood, and I'm very sensitive to what they're saying. Very much like them a couple of years ago, living when I left, I felt that the city was imposing on me. I felt that the city was not listening to me. And I felt that the city was doing things for the city's benefit, but not necessarily for a resident's benefit. And I say all that because parking is an issue throughout the city. Parking is an issue throughout the city. And I would hope that any concept that we are paying for would not take parking away from people when there is already parking concerns. And I know that, I know you, and I know you do your best. And I stand, I stand 10 toes by your work and the work of your team. But I have to raise the concern of a city that is ever growing, a neighborhood that wants to stay quaint. I'm using my words, choosing my word choice nicely. A neighborhood that wants to stay quaint. But to remove parking is gonna cause a ripple effect that we probably can't even imagine at this point. And so whatever the concept is going to be, one of the priorities of the concept needs to be retaining parking for those people that live there. So that was more of a statement than my question.
So I think the issue is a complex, right?
I really don't call. I really don't. I do this because I see you and I'm sensitive and I live here. But you guys also have to see us and understand that we take this very, very, very seriously. And it bothers me when people you don't have to like me, I could care less, but respect the seat that I sit in and respect the work that we're trying to do. And we're gonna get it right sometimes, but God darn it, we're gonna get it wrong sometimes too. But we're here to have a conversation to make sure that we can do our very best. And so, Jim, from me to you, I'm telling you, if I see something and parking looks funny, it's gonna be me and you. Because parking, that's something we can give these people.
Right,
We
so
can give them parking.
if I can, the issue of parking really was brought up by neighbors and not the department. Right, and I think, we looked at the data that the neighbors, that gave, we really saw that the maximum amount of usage was 28% of the on-street parking was occupied. And that's from the, visual observations that we have records for, right? But I'm not saying that's what the end result is, right? But I do think that we need to have, everything needs to be on the table and the community needs to weigh in on what that is, right? And, because I think that is, the development of a really good plan. What is people's priorities, right? That gets there. And I only say that because I don't know what the end result is going to be, right? What we're asking for is an opportunity to engage the community, to talk about what this could look like and how we could do it. But one of the things I can tell you, and I can say that, there's a few things that I say to my department that runs consistent. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So I can't begin to address the challenges that we exist with things if we don't ever change anything, right? But I also say one thing, even from a simple sidewalk project, that we're not doing a sidewalk project, we're doing a neighborhood improvement project. And we need to, we need to put our stamp and we need to put an approval and we need to do that at the community together. And I think that, when we looked at Hospital Hill, I think is another great example. We looked at, a couple of different opportunities that we have there. That what we ended up is really what was possible within the existing footprint and what supported the neighborhood community. They really drove some of the things, but we also looked at some of the earlier conversations that we had where they had initial pull-in parking. And they're like, no, we absolutely have to keep the pull-in parking, and we were able to modify things and have it different, but also create a safer street. And I think Jimmy, who's up at the convenience store over there, was a very strong proponent of maintaining the angle parking. And and if you go up and talk to Jimmy today, Jimmy will tell you it works perfect, right? And that having a parking lot was done. So all I say is we need to leave the ideas that are out there and just see where it comes. But I hear you, and from a parking perspective, there have been we follow social media as well, and we do see some of the comments that come with a residential parking program. But the residential parking program has been very complex, right? And before we were able to do it, we had to change state legislation. Right, changing state legislation is one time a year, right? It's the support of in this instance it was the support of Senator Duff, right? But that doesn't mean that we are not rallying other senators up there that has to vote for it as well. So we had to first change that. Once we got that changed, we had to change the city ordinance, as you recall. We had to do that. Then we had to have the parking authority take that on, and then we went back and forth to what that proposal was with you. We are going to propose to the parking authority recommendations out for public comment that come next month. In next month's meeting, so we'll be out. But it has been a long term, and I think that is part and parcel what we need to do together. And I think some of the I will tell you right now that the East Orange folks really bear a burden of, I think we heard some people who bypass the beach and, they drop people off and they come parking in neighborhoods and they take over the really valuable spaces. And I think that, those could be found in different things, but, I think, we'll address the parking, equally to that, but I don't know what the end result is going to be, right?
And I know that, and I'm okay today understanding that we all don't know what the end result. My very clear ask is that on that list of priorities, parking is number one.
Yep.
That's my ask.
Okay.
Mr. Buckler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, am I loud coming from the virtual world?
Not too bad. You're fine.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I have been under the weather since Thursday. But I'd really like to thank all the residents who have come out and engaged in this process so far. It's been really helpful as a new council member to just see different folks engage. I am an East Norwalk resident, and I live 2 blocks away from the Gregory Boulevard Circle in the Marvin Beach neighborhood. And before I share my thoughts on this specific project, I just want to acknowledge that I really do understand the frustrations of what it means to be living in East Norwalk right now. So every day I sit through the ongoing traffic and construction, the ever-changing detours around Cemetery, the walk bridge work, and just the constant digging up of East Norwalk on East Avenue. And it's a really frustrating experience. And I recognize that these frustrations are compounding. I might be of maybe the minority, but I remain kind of optimistic that the end product of it all will be better for my kids and their futures and the way that everything will look. But I understand that's, up for debate. I have listened really attentively to like every word in the public comment and the written comment so far. And I've directly engaged with many of my neighbors, most who are young families, to just hear their thoughts on the proposal. And I also have the lived experience myself of going through this intersection anytime I go anywhere in Norwalk. So I believe this intersection is just not safe for cars, pedestrians, or cyclists. It's not intuitive to approach. Cars don't know who to yield to, and there are a lot of cars that move fast around it. I really don't feel safe going to the intersection, and I don't feel safe going anywhere near it. But it also has speeding impacts that make it dangerous for myself and my 2-year-old son to get to Ludlow Park and to travel to the Marvin School and to get down to the beach. My neighborhood alone, the Marvin Beach neighborhood, has 25 kids under the age of 5. And many of the surrounding areas from Gregory Boulevard through 1st through 5th Street have so many young families with kids that go to Marvin Elementary School walking around this intersection and going through this park to get to Marvin School. So I just think this intersection could be better and safer. And this is really the first step in the process. It's not the last to making that happen. And I just want to reiterate today that we are not voting, or we are going to vote on an engagement and design process with the consultant, but the final design is not done. The design process is a conversation with many options on different pieces. And I want to echo what my colleague, Councilperson Ayers, was saying. Parking is not being eliminated. It's all up for discussion. It's all an alternative with several different options to explore. And the design concept is going to be informed by community feedback. And the primary goal is safety. And there's so much upside to that. When I look at this project, the upside that I see, it's going to improve bike walk safety around a dangerous intersection. It's going to improve traffic calming measures. It's going to improve safety and access to Ludlow Park and to Marvin Elementary School. And it's going to make the neighborhood more walkable and bike friendly, especially for kids and family going to the school, beach, and park. So I just believe this can be done in a way that has been done before with the TMP team. The Transit Mobility Parking Department has a really strong record of using public input to shape projects. I trust that this department is going to work alongside the consultant to ensure that we're exploring all options and alternatives. And I really think the end product of this is going to be something that is best for future generations living in this neighborhood. And in walking around this area, and not just for the drivers and the cyclists, but for the residents that live here as well. So I'm in support of the project, and I'm eager to hear how the community input helps shape, the next steps in this design process, knowing that this is the first step. So I really appreciate all the public comment, and as well as the city staff for kind of lending all their time and answering all these questions to get to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bucklow. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Mr. Goldman.
Just want to note, and before I think I turn it over to my colleague, Nicolidi, who I know wanted to say something as well. I just want to, first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you for your engagement. One thing that I think you've seen here tonight, you've seen here in the meeting a couple of weeks ago, I think you've seen here in the interactions that a number of us had with you at the ENA meeting and at the forum this past Thursday, is there are, with any project, any problem, any issue that comes before this council or any issue the city deals with, there are always competing interests, there are competing concerns, there are pros, cons, and it's messy and incomplete. And it's our job, I think, to sort through that and come up with the best possible resolution. And where I come down on this is what we're talking about is public safety. I helped write the Complete Streets Ordinance a couple of years ago because I really believe that making streets safer for pedestrians and bikers and creating easier access to crosswalks will do exactly what's happened this past year, which is reducing more vehicle collisions and reducing pedestrian accidents, which are, like, I think we can all agree, bad. And so I think that while being very sensitive to the concerns raised by both people who have issues with this project or any project, along with people who have a whole set of other concerns, ranging from public safety to the concerns that Councilmember Bucklow just spoke to really well. And I would acknowledge also a lot of the concerns raised by people here tonight and at past meetings, I think have validity when it comes to things like, when it comes to access to parking and potential public safety issues that, could arise from that. I also want to really thank the TMP department, Jim, Garrett, Ben, Mel, and all of you for your constant work to make sure that we are informed, that there is engagement, and that at the ultimate goal, which is creating a streetscape that's, like, honestly better and safer for us all. That's the goal. And so I just want to thank you for your efforts, and my feeling at this point, especially considering the scope of work now includes, the concept design, built-in funds for public engagement, as well as surveys that will help us better understand and get better information. I will be supporting this vote tonight, and I know that I want to turn it over to, is that right? But actually, well, it's the mayor, but.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak?
Is there anyone else who would like to speak, ask questions, comments? Mr. C.
I think I look at my job here is to do a couple things. Is to really listen to the public seriously, take into what they say into account, make sure that transparent facts are provided. Also to acknowledge, like, the history and context. And I think I brought that up the last time. Just driving to the Marvin last week, I see all the construction. But I think also another part of the context, I think Mr. Travers brought up, is what happened in my neighborhood up in Hospital Hill. And last week when I was getting a haircut, there was questions from Vic, the owner of Blue Cactus, or Miss Helen, who owns the convenience store. It was like, Jalen, what's going on with the council? And they were confused about the tabling because they seen the fruits of TMP's labor. And I'm not saying that to just give you guys kudos. I'm saying it because it's my constituents in District A that have lived through going through public comment, being involved, going to the hospital, having input of what's going on in their neighborhood, and being really successful. It's a lot easier finding parking there when I go to get a haircut, or if I go to get lunch. And I think that that's really important to talk about. Even on my way driving to City Hall today, you guys were on Main Street. To my knowledge, there's no construction that's going on there, but you guys were there probably doing something to better that neighborhood. There are a lot of benefits that you guys did on Hospital Hill that you guys didn't have to do. You added a ramp for accessibility to a business. And that was all in part of a grant, but that's something that the business owner could have paid for, but you guys made sure that that happened. The history, even though on Wall Street, and I understand with the statue, but the history, you taught me a part of history that I didn't know, growing up in Norwalk. But there's a famous jazz musician that I know his name, but I can't think about it. But
Horace Silver.
Horace Silver. And you guys incorporated that in the plans of Wall Street. So you guys like know the history that a lot of us don't know and hidden history, and you guys have honored that. And I think that along with that, I think that we have to make a decision that's based on the long-term public good. And last Thursday, there was one gentleman who told us, he said, "Hey, I'm putting my family in your hands, and I trust you with it." And for that reason, I think that we need to make the right call and make sure that we're doing this plan that is gonna be for the betterment for the safety of everything. But I also just want to touch on with the grants. With this grant funding, could we take the grant funding and use it for a senior center or for education?
So the grant funding was for the design of a roundabout. So roundabout and energy improvements in the subject project area, right? So when like grants are for specific reasons, right? It's not here's a check, right? I think the reality is we have obligations to do it or refund the money, right? So I think that's just what it is. We either do what we say we're going to do, or we return the money.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yeah. Ms. Young, I'm gonna be brief because I know it's getting late and we want to go home. But I know all too well about construction fatigue, being in South Norwalk and being a part of the 2010 TOD development, because that's about how far back it goes. And so, South Norwalk has exploded with development, and there were a lot of things that happened prior to Jim Travers coming, where we've had things happen in our community, whether or not we said we didn't think it was going to work, it was done. And quite frankly, it's not working. And so I understand where you all are coming from. But we now are able to at least talk about those things that aren't working so well to try to fix it. But then again, there's money, involved with that. And we've had those conversations. Something as simple as the sidewalks that butt out into the street and not understanding the traffic flow. But I can't say that is what your department does now. I think that you all are here now, and the way that you've approached the work that you do has been very different and inclusive. And I'm saying that because I've seen the other side of this. And so I appreciate the work that you all do and the outreach that you do in the community. It has been very different. And so because I kind of struggled with it because I've seen how it hasn't worked. But I can speak to definitely seeing a difference in what you all are doing. And what I will say to the residents, you keep doing what you're doing. Because it has to happen. Because we need to listen and make sure that what we come up with works best now and in the future, because you're the TOD area now and you're not done yet. And so you've got to look to, we've got to just be honest about the fact that there's more development that's coming in your area, which means more bikes, more cars, more people. And so what does that look like? 5-10 years from now, when we talk about safety and mobility in our city. And so I just appreciate where we are. And the other thing that I'm okay with is that this is just the beginning. This is really just the beginning with this rendering, with the next step. Although we've been talking about this for since 2020 or before then, 2021. And I think the time lapse in all of that, if you look at 2021 to where we are now, that, it's a long time. And people are now coming back to hearing about this, thinking that this is just happening. But again, I just want to say, as my other colleagues have said, I trust your process. But I also say to the community, your voice matters. And that's why we're here. And that's why the elected officials that are from your district have made sure that we provided an opportunity to hear from you again, and the mayor and all of us, because we're all committed to this. So I support this.
Look, I appreciate the kind words. I do. I'm very lucky to do what I do. And this is the best job I think that anyone could ever have. Sometimes the hardest, right? But I'm also I would be remiss if I didn't say, like, I get to do it with the best group of people that I think are around, and we have shared values that we look to do. We're at 15 hours here today, right? And we start very early again tomorrow morning, right? And all at really desire to really achieve results. We look at it, one of the issues, we're lucky to have a transportation analyst that Nell, who really could look at data. We now have data that we've never had in the city before, and that data helps to shape decisions that we make and shape funding, but really creates opportunities for additional funding. I think we're starting to see some of the fruits of those labors, right? I think the issue is, that doesn't mean we achieved a goal, right? That means we have to go harder, right? And that it's going to be even more work to do that same result next year, right? But again, I said, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And we changed, and you all changed, right? You drove, a city that had the most amount of sidewalks that were built in any single year, right? And in any of those sidewalks, you see people walking on. We delivered sidewalks in Rowayton that was 21 years in the making, right? And you can't find a time that somebody's not walking on, right? Because I think what we found is we want to be connected to more people. And I think we have to look at that. But we also, like it was said before, one tragedy on city streets is one too many. And we need to strive to have that, to not have.
And Mayor, if I could just say, as Councilwoman Ayers said, parking is important in the city. And I don't care what we do, parking is important. Whether or not people think we're going to all be riding on bikes, I know that I'm not. We need to have parking, and it needs to be a part of what we are planning.
Yep,
so
most definitely.
Mr. Sawyer.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say I'm 5 months in here. I'm all for proactive public safety. That's first and foremost. And I've listened and I've read all the letters. We have to have the design before we can do anything, and that's where the input comes in. So that's why I'm going to vote to move forward with the design. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. I'm just going to make a couple comments and then I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Edie. And I'm just going to repeat a couple things that I said 2 weeks ago. This is a public safety matter, and the city has been looking at this intersection for decades. We're talking tonight, going back to 2020, 2021. However, and those of you who've lived in East Norwalk for many years will recall, it was certainly before I was on the council. So it's going back 10, 12, possibly 15 years that there was a change made there. And it didn't work, and it made people even more confused. And then they changed it back. That was before we had a transportation, mobility, and parking department with traffic engineers who study traffic and pedestrian and car accidents, and they know exactly what they're doing. And I want to give the department kudos and tell you as well from myself, my experience on the council, that I trust your process too. I've seen it, we've seen it, and Mr. Seed brought up the Hospital Hill project. That is one of the most successful projects that I believe the city has had because of the community engagement that was involved. And the residents who live there, the businesses who are there, are extraordinarily happy. So I really want to thank everybody for their comments. I want to thank everybody for staying engaged. That's exactly what we want. I am working, as you know, to improve communication, to improve transparency. That's exactly what's going on here. And I am committed to continuing that to occur. The statistics speak for themselves. You know, you've been here for this department's been around for 5.5 years. So it takes a little while to see that. But when the state is seeing increases in accidents and Norwalk is seeing reductions, that data speaks for itself. We are doing something right. And so watching that video was very eye-opening. You know, just to see several near misses. And, you know, hearing from the families, I mean, you know, one of the things that we did, and I want to make sure that, you know, we hear from people from, it's been mentioned many times tonight, who are on both sides. Many of you don't want to see this move forward, but many do. And I want to make sure that, to point out that one of the things we did was we provided an opportunity for feedback on the website. And the majority of those respondents were in support of this project. We heard from both sides, right? But the majority were in support of the project. So, you know, we just want to continue, start the conversation. We can't, you know, cannot start community engagement until there is some kind of a design. And that is what the council is voting on tonight. So I want to thank everybody, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Edie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say real quick, I know the hour's late, so I'm going to try to talk real quick. But again, I want to thank all the residents who have been engaged thus far, because it's not over. We're grateful that we did get the opportunity to take a step back, because we heard you. I didn't know the history, so I figured there was a whole bunch of other people that didn't know the history, that this had been going on since 2021. So I wanted us to get a chance. We wanted to hear you out right now, but we know you're going to have more opportunity to do that. But in the meantime, I do want to thank TMP and Jay Habansky, the Chief of Economic Development. So Jim, Ben, and Garrett for, again, always being responsive when we reach out. I appreciate that 100%. So I do trust that you will take us to the next level with this project. Also, I just want people to keep in mind, like, this is a new mayor, this is a new council. We are trying, we are learning, but we are also trying to do things differently in a better way, because we don't need to have this fight with you with every project. We don't. So please know that we are sincere in the work that we are doing. We are not trying to make your life miserable. We live here too. I pay high rent, I pay taxes, all of that. I'm going through the traffic just like you are. So please know that we are trying to do our best to work together and to grow this city, because I believe it's going to be much better off in the end. So let me keep moving. So we know that there were major concerns that were already brought up about the parking tonight in Fifth Street. So to address this, we did ask for the contract language to be amended prior to signing. So we are not amending the item on the agenda, but we will be amending the scope of the work on the contract. And I will read the language. VHB will include streetscape improvements to Fifth Street, showing more advanced traffic calming measures to accommodate the Norwalk River Valley Trail. And we're going to make a motion with the condition of the change language. I make the motion that we approve based on the condition with this changed language.
And to just be clear for the record, that's a change to the scope of work of under 1.0, where it says concept design, and it's under 1.1, the Fifth Street section, to amend that section of the scope of work.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead now and call for the vote on items
It's 2A and B.
D, 2A and B with the amended language to the scope of work All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? That is a unanimous vote. Now moving on to item 1 under economic and community development, also.
Where that there are some people who may need to
Yes,
recuse
some people who
themselves.
need to recuse themselves, and so allow. Oh, the whole thing can't say this.
All right, so we're waiting for a moment, people who need to recuse themselves to vacate the council chambers.
Oh, yeah, he's on Zoom now.
Seeing that that's occurred, I'm gonna start the reading of the item. This is D1. A, authorize the mayor to execute any and all documents associated with the submission of the PY 52 annual action plan to HUD. B, authorize the mayor to execute any and all documents consistent with the approved PY 52 annual action plan. I'd like to move this and speak to it very briefly. I just want to thank the redevelopment agency and the city of Norwalk for their work on this annual process with the community development block grant funding. And I want to thank in particular Brian Madoli, Stephen Ivan, Carly Kramer, and Sabrina Roman. That's it.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And that too is unanimous, and I will now call for that final motion. Motion to adjourn, Madam Mayor. Thank you, all in favor? Okay, we are adjourned.
Okay.